Hi, my name is Makayla Boyd, and I'm an independent filmmaker. I am born and raised in Cincinnati, specifically in the Forest Park area. I went to school at Wynwoods High School, go Warriors, and yeah, my entire life I've been in Cincinnati, never moved, and Cincinnati is just a great place, especially if you want to get into any of the arts. So when I went to Wynwoods High School, I had a teacher, and she taught video production. And I took that class, and I liked it so much that I took another class. It was video production too. They got rid of the third video production class my junior year because of budget cuts. And I was so bummed because I really wanted to continue on that path. So I started doing video projects anytime we had group projects so I could get that practice in. And I'm also a theater kid, so I was a little bit into acting, and I decided my junior year that this is what I wanted to do full time. I wanted to write and make films, and I wanted it to showcase the Black community because in a lot of different storytelling aspects, I didn't see myself or I didn't see my friends and family. And I really wanted to show that to the world, that this is another option. Our stories are out here and they're not just about trauma. So while I was in high school, my teacher helped me to create a portfolio and to submit it to UC. I got into the University of Cincinnati in their electronic media program, and I started making films while I was in there. My classes taught me how to make films, how to budget, how to make stuff look good. I did some of the videography, and then I started getting into editing as well. I also did screenwriting, and learning all of that together really was what I wanted to learn. It was everything that I hoped it would be and more. And they used to have a 48-hour film festival that they would do. And each year I would participate in that, and it would just help me get better, and I'd be able to tell more stories. And it just kind of got me hooked into doing the whole process. Eventually, I graduated, and COVID hit. And when COVID hit, we weren't able to make films because, we thought the world was ending. And eventually, 2 years after COVID, I was like, I'm tired of not doing anything. I was in the news world at the time. I wasn't filming, I wasn't editing, and I was like, I have to do something to be creative or I'm gonna explode. And I decided that a script that I wrote, it was a play originally that I put on for a group called Black Arts Collaborative at the University of Cincinnati. I got so many compliments on it that I decided that I should make it into a web series. And I grabbed all my film equipment, I held auditions, and I decided to make that web series. It's called Done in the Dark. There are 2 seasons, and that's how I got back into filmmaking and back into my creative bag. I'm screening a film called Noir Stories, and the first episode is what will be shown. That one's called The Babysitter. And Noir Stories, I'm a horror fan. I don't know if you guys see the earring, but I love horror, and I usually don't see horror where Black people aren't either the first ones killed or aren't in it at all. So I was like, I want to make a horror series that's kind of like American Horror Story, where it's an anthology and there's different stories happening each day. And I wanted to have Black people in it. So that's where the idea of Noir Stories came. And the first episode, The Babysitter, is something that I wrote way back during my freshman year of college, and I decided that that was going to be the first episode that I made. I would say my influences, I love Ava DuVernay. Everything that she has done in the filmmaking world is inspiring as a Black woman. I also love Issa Rae. Issa Rae, I've loved anything that she makes. Everything she makes, I go and I see it. And she's been a really good person to look up to, and just knowing she started off kind of like me, independent in the YouTube verse, and she kind of just branched out. That's stuff that I like. Quinta Bronson, another Black woman, amazing. Once again, I remember in high school sending videos of her and my friends. There was this skit she did about having a perm in your hair, and that was the first time I saw her, and I just kept watching her. And now to see her on Abbott Elementary is super amazing, and seeing how she came up. I would say those are my acting and filmmaking inspirations. My other inspirations, I would say, would probably be certain authors who write books. I am an avid reader, and I love storytelling. And every time I read certain books, I note, what do I like about the book? How did they tell that story? And I want to bring that over to the screen. I think personally that reading a lot of books has helped to shape me into the author that I am now when I write scripts for myself. Allison Carter is probably my favorite. She has this series. It's called the first original book is called I'd Tell You I Love You, but then I'd Have to Kill You. And the series, it just follows a girls' school for spies. And I love that series so much. I also love Rick Riordan, Percy Jackson series. He's amazing. He's probably like one of the first times that I was able to see different cultures, different sexualities, all shown in like a book series. Because normally, you don't usually get all of that. And that was amazing to see, growing up while I was reading his books. My favorite horror movie is It. And it's the most recent It that came out while I was in college. I will go back and watch that every single Halloween. It's just amazing. I love like the characters. I love that there's comedy mixed in with the horror aspect to it. I still remember the first time I went to the theaters to see it with my friend Jasmine. And we were just sitting there, we were like really scared because the previews looked really scared, but we spent a lot of time laughing as well. And I love when different movies or TV shows can mix different genres. One of my favorite television shows is The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and that's because they were able to make you laugh, but they were also able to make you cry sometimes with some of the storylines that they talked about. And I hope to do that with some of my films in the future to kind of give you that mixture of emotions. When I'm writing, it usually takes either me to, this will sound weird, but I promise I'm not a stalker. Sometimes I'll see somebody out on the street and they'll either do something that interests me or they'll look interesting. And I'll be like, I wonder what's their story? How would I write them? And that kind of just inspires me to write certain things. Other times I'll hear music and I'll be like, this is a good song for like this type of genre. Frank Ocean's Pink and White is what inspired me to make a capstone project called Apple that I made my senior year at the University of Cincinnati. And as I was listening to that song for the first time, I kind of just pictured what would be the opening scene for that. And it was like a girl walking and, it's a beautiful, day, but she's just really tired and exhausted and frustrated. And just different things like that helped me to get a story in my head. And once it's in my head, I have to put it on paper. If I don't put it on paper, I feel like, I'm going to forget about it, or it just really frustrates me for some reason. So I'll just go and I'll write it. I might have my phone on me. I'll type it in my notes. And sometimes my dreams. I'll dream about something and I'm like, that could make a cool story. I would say for noir stories, the first episode, The Babysitter, was coming to me when I was thinking about how I would have to sometimes babysit my little sister. And I remember one time while babysitting her, I heard a noise and it scared the crap out of me. And that's kind of how I got the idea of babysitting is kind of scary when you're the actual babysitter, because sometimes you don't even know the person. I knew my sister, but imagine going to somebody's house, a stranger usually, or just a neighbor who you don't know that well, and you're just babysitting somebody that you don't know. It just kind of was creepy to me, and I was like, let's think on that more. How can I make it really scary? And that's kind of how I came up with the idea to write that. It's movies like Moonlight, because the color grading that they do is really beautiful. And I try to usually emulate that when I want my characters or my scenes to have certain emotions. In The Babysitter, you'll notice that there's a lot of red. And red to me screams anxious or anxiety. And that's why I leaned on that coloring for The Babysitter. Cincinnati is kind of the best way to describe it is it's a hidden gem. You realize when you get here that it's not just a random city in Ohio. It actually has a lot of talent here. It has musicians. It has artists who are both, graphic designers or painters. It has writers, poets, actors, and filmmakers like myself. And for me, I always try to connect us in some sort of way. When I did my first series, Done in the Dark, I was in a group called Cincinnati Creatives. It wasn't formal or anything. It was just a bunch of us that got together in a text group and we would bounce ideas off each other or, collaborate. And in that group, I was like, hey, I'm making a web series. I would really like to use music in it. Would any of you guys be interested in premiering your song? And so each week when an episode would come out, I would highlight the artist and their song that they put on there, and we kind of collaborated with each other. And I think Cincinnati has a lot of great collaboration between genres. I know that there's so many groups who are trying to get people together and showcase what Cincinnati has to offer. And to me, the culture is very collaborative and great. People always try to lift you up and, they teach you what you might not know how to do. And I really like that about Cincinnati. I feel like other places, they might try to keep you down because they're scared that, you might come into their territory or threaten them. But Cincinnati, it doesn't really feel like that, at least not with the groups that I'm usually around. It's usually a collaborative effort where we're all trying to eat at the table. Done in the Dark is my favorite collaboration because that's the first time that I got to kind of use a bunch of different music from different artists and showcase them. I put out a tweet asking for music along with, putting that message in the group. And I got music not only from Cincinnati, but from other places too. There was a gentleman who sent me his music all the way from the United Kingdom. There was another person who sent me their music, and they were like in Baltimore. And then I had all the Cincinnati people, and I got to showcase their music each week and highlight them. And it was great to just collaborate with them and show their songs. And I got to listen to their songs. They're still on my playlist. Shout out to Grand Ace. I love his music. I try to put a song of his in every project that I do because I'm a fan. And there's just so many other great people that I got to collaborate with and showcase their music. And as a creative person, that's kind of that collaboration again that I like to do. I like to bring all of us together to sit at the table and boost each other up. There's a lot of great upcoming filmmakers. I know I have a friend, her name's Lanisha, LLR Visuals. She's been getting into it, and I've loved watching her grow. I've loved seeing her get into filmmaking and learning about everything, and seeing her, she also has a horror movie that's coming out, seeing her get to do that. I have so many students at UC, and watching them and helping them whenever I can on their projects is super heartwarming to, help them reach that full potential and learn what I did while I was in college. I'd also say there's a lot of actors that I really love, collaborating with them and putting them in our projects. Some of my favorite actors that I've worked with, there's a girl, her name's Megan, and she's amazing. She's been in 2 of my projects now. I really liked working with, there's another guy, Irvin. He's really, really great. He's also in Noir Stories. And Brianna Gibson, another great person. She's in the episode of The Babysitter. Lovely to work with. There's just a lot of people that I love collaborating with in general. I do want to shout out my DP, Kiara Gross. She went to UC as well. She's currently in Louisville though, but she is an amazing cinematographer. Everything she touches turns to gold, literally. So I would say that at the university, you get to learn from people who've actually been out in the industry. They can give you advice. They can, tell you, hey, this is the theory about certain things. But I honestly feel like university is great, don't get me wrong. But some of the most things that I have learned has been out in the real world, getting that experience. And I think you can say that about quite a lot of things. Sometimes you may take a cooking lesson where they're teaching it to you, but it's not until you get in the kitchen and you're like, oh, I got to do this by myself. I got to problem solve. It's not tasting right. The chicken's too dry or something where you're like, okay, now I understand what I did wrong. When I do it next time, I'll do this. And that's kind of what filmmaking has been like. When I went and did the series, I used all the stuff, the tools that I had learned in school, and they made the process a whole lot easier. But when certain problems arise, or when I had to figure out funding, or when I have to figure out how to schedule 12 people at the same time, getting that experience is what helped me to know how to do it in the future. I have another series coming up which will involve 12 people, and now it's like, I've done it in the past, I know what worked, I know what definitely didn't work, and I wouldn't do again. And I think learning from those experiences by actually doing it sometimes can be a great teacher, especially if you learn the way I do. So for me, I lean towards probably more series right now. Noir Stories is a series, Done in the Dark is a series. I feel like some of the ones that I have planned in the future are just too short to make them into full-length movies. In the future, I'd love to do some movies that are longer. I think for right now, I'm just kind of learning as I go, trying to perfect the process before I do full-length feature. I do have stuff written that I'd love to get out there that are feature-length, but for now, I think it's kind of about learning and perfecting before I move out, because features sometimes can be a whole nother ballgame when you're trying to schedule everything and put it all together. Whereas series, sometimes you might take an episode, okay, we're going to film it for this portion. All right, we could take a break, and now we can move on to the next episode, especially with the anthology series that I'm doing. It was like new cast each time, it was just kind of like setting up different shorts. But I'd be excited to try some features in the future. Sure. So I am so excited. One of our episodes is called Imaginary in Noir Stories. It received 4 selections for film festivals, and this is super exciting to me because I've never had a project get selected for, this many film festivals. I got to go into Independent, Avondale Film Festival, and now it's getting considered for Indie Shorts Fest and Indie Short X, which is just so exciting for me because, like I said, I've never really gotten to have that. So Noir Stories right now is the biggest thing that I'm promoting. Go out and watch episodes. I think there's an episode for everybody that they would like or be like, okay, this is a cool concept. Each episode is different, and they're different lengths as well. There's 2 shorter episodes, and then there's 2 kind of longer ones as well. For me, the dream would be to continue putting out content that showcases Black people, and eventually I would love to showcase even more different races or help people uplift them to be able to tell those stories for their race, for their gender identity, for their sexuality. And I think the dream is to help people in that way. If that means to start a production company in the future, that would be lovely to be able to do. If that means just continuing to tell my stories where people can watch them and see themselves, then that's what I'll continue to do as well. But I would say the next thing that I'm working on would be Noir Stories, the 2nd season, because I just could not get all of the ideas I had into just 1 season. And then I'd like to work on a full-length series, like the full 30 minutes instead of just, shorter ones. And I'd like to do one about dating as a Black person and, just kind of more of a comedy one. So working on some ideas for that. I think I'll definitely stay in Cincinnati. I feel like Cincinnati for me is home, and I love that the arts are big here, that I can collaborate here. And I feel like, it just wouldn't be the same anywhere else. My number 1 advice for a creator starting out is to get out and do it. Whether you're going to college, not going to college for it, get out and actually film stuff, actually write scripts. That's the best way, in my opinion, to learn. That's the best way to get experience and to, see like, okay, I made this mistake. So now I know in the future not to do this. Or, okay, this turned out really well, so I'm going to do this in the future. I think the phrase here, practice makes perfect, is absolutely true because the more I've done filmmaking and gotten out there and created stuff, the more I felt like I've learned, the better of a creative I felt like I've become.